Well, excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that absolutely beautiful lunch. It was fantastic. For those that aren't in the racing industry, my name is Jason Richardson. I'm a broadcaster for TVN, also for SEN 1116 Radio, Melbourne's home of sport, where I do some work with one of our very special guests today in the one and only Bryan Martin. Also on Saturday I was with the 7 Network. I was doing mounting yard coverage with Francesca Kamani, and I did sense that the cameras were concentrating on her a little bit than me, which is disappointing considering what I'm bringing to the table visually. But my task today is to have a chat to the First Lady of Racing, which I am very excited to do so, and also to chat to a man, and he'll smile a little bit. I love to call him a doyen. In fact, now and then when we're on radio together, I call him a fossil, but I love him dearly in Bryan Martin. I'll talk all about our very special guest shortly, but it gives me great pleasure, firstly, to introduce Peter Blunden. He's owned horses with Gay Waterhouse for a long, long time. Viking legend, lawn dancer, Kentucky Park are just some of his good horses. He's a fanatical racing person. In fact, he is the encyclopedia of racing knowledge, I am assured, from Leo Schlink. So let's give him a big round of applause. Peter Blunden.
Thank you, Jason. Don't know about an encyclopedia, I just want the next winner does me, usually. But no, it's great to be among friends at my favourite time of the year, and I'm sure it's a favourite time for most of you here. And what better honour than to introduce the person who, more than any other, has been racing's most outstanding ambassador in recent history. Gay Waterhouse's record speaks for itself. 114 Group 1 winners, 7 times Sydney's Premier Trainer, more than 300 black type victories. The key to that success has been the passion, the personality, the hard work and the drive. And don't forget the love of the horse and the training ability, which has all made her an Australian racing icon. Having grown up in Sydney and being a lifetime racegoer, I was privileged to watch Gay's father, the legendary TJ Smith, dominate the city's racing scene, winning an extraordinary 33 consecutive training premierships, something which obviously will never happen again, with immortals like Tulloch and Kingston Town and Gun Sin among his champions. So what an apprenticeship Gay had, 15 years working with her dad before ultimately gaining her own training licence in 1992 after a prolonged battle with officialdom. So what's changed there, eh, Gay? Gay's come a long way since those acting days on The Young Doctors and on the stage in London. She became only the 3rd trainer to prepare more than 100 Sydney winners in a season in 1996-7, and she equalled her father's record of training 156 Metropolitan winners in a season in 2002-3. Gay's unbridled energy has made her in many ways the public face of racing. She's won virtually every race there is to win, with stars including Pierrot, Sebring, Dance Hero, Desert War, Grand Army, Juggler, though the big one still eludes her. Again, she's in it with a huge chance with last year's runner-up Fiorente. He's a fair way above the dozen or more horses I've had with Gay over the years, but I must say I've had my fair share of luck, and she's been an absolute pleasure to deal with, has become a very good friend over the years. For us in the media, she's also damn good at giving us headlines and a decent yarn, and that after all is what our profession is all about. Husband Rob and son Tom are pretty good at it too, though daughter Kate's the real star these days with her fashion and social writing. So it's certainly my privilege today to welcome the one and only Gay Waterhouse to the stage. Gay.
Okay, you can take a seat, and I will position our second guest next to you, a man who this year will be calling his 25th Melbourne Cup. Think about that. He's been at the top of his game for 25 years. And of course, when I think about Bryan Martin, I think about how the pressure it would have been to call a race like the Cox Plate when you own a horse who has a chance of winning the race, and he did that with Fields of Omar, ran in the Cox Plate not 1 but 5 times, ran in the money 4 times, and won the great race on 2 occasions, with Bryan calling the action and being able to keep his emotions together. I think is the great signature to the complete professional that he is. Let's give him a big round of applause as well. Bryan Martin.
Am I sitting in the right spot?
I think you are.
Hopefully our microphones are nice and loud and clear. I'll start with you, Gai. Welcome, and it's fantastic to have you here. You've been runner-up in the Great Melbourne Cup on 3 occasions. Tiakau, Nick, and Nothing Like a Dane, and Fiorente. I think the passion burns bright for you to win this great race.
It certainly does, and this year, of course, we've probably got better chances or more chances. We've got a horse called Fiorente, which you've mentioned. You've got the horse running tomorrow in the Caulfield Cup called Glencairn Gold. I did. You've got a horse called, what's his name, Julianus, and he could easily slip into the Cup. He's the unsung hero at this point in time. You've got a horse flying in on Saturday from France called Tres Bleu. So, you know, there are 4 chances. So we've gone from having 1 chance every few years to 4 chances.
And it's extraordinary what you did last year. I mean, obviously, Tiakau, Nick, you were new to race, no, new to training, not new to racing, of course, being the daughter of the superstar TJ. But last year, to have a horse fly in, and you only actually physically got your hands on him for such a short amount of time, and for him to run second in the Melbourne Cup was unbelievable.
We'd seen him in Newmarket in the July meeting, and Rob and I looked at about 30 horses that the agents had kept passing to us and saying, look at this, from France through to England. And the moment I saw him, I said, he's drop dead gorgeous. I mean, he had that sex appeal that good horses have. And we negotiated and bought the horse, and it took a long time. It took about 4 months to buy him. And there were a lot of other people from Australia trying to secure Fiorente. And then James McDonald rode him, and he had a little bit of interference in the straight. And of course, the history is Lloyd won the race with Brett Pebble, and we ran second. But it was a huge effort, and he's never done anything wrong since then. Has he, Bryan? He's been a marvellous horse from the day he arrived.
Perfect preparation, Gabe, for a Melbourne Cup, because I know, talking to you right at the start of the year, I said, will he campaign in Sydney? You said no. He'll come straight to Melbourne. He'll run in the Memsie. He'll run in the Dardo Tam, which he won. He'll go to the Turnbull. He'll go to the Cox Plate, which will be run number 4, and run number 5 will be the Melbourne Cup. So, touch wood, everything's in place. So he's had a magnificent preparation, and I saw him at the stables last Monday week, and he has sex appeal. You're right, Gay, for a thoroughbred. He walked out. He's long, he's sleek, he's got that beautiful long forelock that So You Think had, and he's just a stunning-looking animal. I think he can just about win the Cox Plate and the Melbourne Cup. I think he can really win the double.
The big saintly double, but who is going to ride him? That's going to be
Well, I might have to put up my hand, mightn't I? Return to the saddle after many a year. Well, it was so funny, can I tell you something? The other day we flew up to Lloyd Williams at Mount Macedon, and it was a bit like going into Dr. No. It was just amazing. This fantastic complex in the hills of Mount Macedon. But one of the things, as Lloyd said, if he didn't say it once, he must have said it several times, that he reminded me that, of course, Justice Ash never would have won the Melbourne Cup if he hadn't told TJ right from the start he had to train in Melbourne. Oh, right. He said, I helped him win that Melbourne Cup, and he probably did. Yep. And exactly the same, having that in mind, I thought, really, this is where he's racing. He's got to be here every day, pounding those tracks and getting the miles under his legs.
Well, we've got a lot of journos in the room, but we've got one of the best in the business from a television point of view in Tony Jones, and he would whack me over the head if I didn't ask you who was going to ride Fiorente, because for those who don't understand, Damien Oliver is now suspended, Nashville Willer is now suspended. Who's going to ride him?
I don't know, I was just talking about it at the table there. There's a few that have put their hand up, as you can imagine. Yesterday afternoon, all of a sudden I saw a flood of jockeys ringing, and they normally ring the person that Mark Newman at present is doing that for me, booking the jockeys. So I thought, hello, something's gone wrong. And of course then I realised that Damien had a suspension. No one at present is booked.
Okay, you don't want to give us a little hint?
Well, there's about 5 put their hands up, and several have said they'd get off their horses for it. I said, I'm sure the owners would love that.
Gay, just with Fiorente, is there anything you wanted to change outside the jockey situation? Is there anything you wanted to change at this stage, sort of getting to the Melbourne Cup? Is everything on track?
No, everything's on track.
What about this morning? What did you do?
It was really nice. We went to Moonee Valley, and we worked with another horse who you should be backing on Sunday at sale, called the Great Snowman. And they really work stylishly, and the valley's lovely. It's a lovely cushiony course, and they glided around it. I think Jane Chapelheim was on there before us. She said, everyone's knocking me about my horse. She said, they say that the only thing that could beat it home would be the ambulance.
I'm just writing down Sail the Great Snowman. That should be hard to beat, I would have
Yes.
thought. Gay's Living the Dream. I know you and Bryan, and we'll talk about Bryan's fantastic book very shortly, but tell us about Gay's Living the Dream, about trying to get not just all the sheikhs of the world to try to win the Melbourne Cup, but actually just the common Australian, give them a chance.
Well, I think, I can answer that because I got in touch with Gay and Rob when they were on holidays. I spoilt their holiday by sending an email off in November of 2011, and I said, Gay, I love the large ownership of horses. We experienced it with Fields of Omar, with family and friends, and extended to probably 100 people. And the joy that that horse at that high level brought to so many people, and I know with my own smaller sort of racing club, if you win a race even in the country, it's just so much fun. And Gay has been such a torchbearer for that type of thing. And I said, why can't we create something like the Gay Waterhouse Racing Club, but maybe tap into the high level horses, maybe try and find a Fiorenti, maybe a Carlton House, but a horse that can compete perhaps in a Melbourne Cup or a BMW or a Cox Plate. So how do we do it? And that was 2 years ago, and we launched it last Monday week. And it's the mums and dads. It's the people like all of us here today. It shouldn't just be for the millionaires. It should be for Beer Belly Bill from Taylor's Lakes. Why can't he get involved? And to try and create it where people can actually pay a monthly subscription, $96 a month, over 4 years, and try and find that horse that can take us to that high level. And Gay embraced it, and that's exactly what we want to do. And just to get a lot of people, more people involved. If it's a problem having 1,500 into a mounting yard, let that be the racing club's problem. Who cares?
Yeah,
they'd be delighted. They'd be that pleased with us. But I think the other thing is that the one thing Australia has to offer that nowhere else in the world, and it's in America or Europe, they don't have the everyday person racing. And we're so lucky in Australia with syndication. And this takes it, as Bryan says, from 15,000 to $96. I mean, anyone can, from grandma to grandkid, anyone can afford it. And I think that's the amazing thing, that it's a very affordable thing, and that the horses have become very expensive. So to be able to have a club that can have a small share, when you own a share in a horse, it might be 50% or it might be 1%. It doesn't really make much difference because you still feel you own that horse. You still see it as your horse. You don't think I've got X percentage of it. You see it as your horse. And I know for the people I train for, and I train for a lot of syndicate people, they just adore it. I mean, as you said, the whole family gets involved. Not just everyone in the office. When they come on a Sunday to the stables, I label them. I have idiot cards on their side there because I need a lot of help, right? And in the old days of treading the boards where they put the idiot board up in front of you, I have it on the Sunday because a lot of people come with horses that have got shares in the horses. But you see them, and they all know each other because of that. And they say, "Oh, John, hi Frank, love you. Oh, I saw your horse run yesterday." And they go to the races with their friends. And you tell me a club in the world, sorry, Bryan, you tell me a club in the world that they can do that. There's nowhere.
And it's the community it can create too. And it's not just about being at the races, but it's the track work, it's the functions, it's going to lunch, it's going to the stables, it's going to the Hunter Valley. Creating that type of community. It happened in Japan. It was very successful in Japan years ago with Japan racing clubs. And that's always been my dream, to try and create something for the mass people to get involved. And with communications now, you can virtually live stream the horse galloping at Randwick this morning. That can be up on the internet, can be on your iPad. So that's how far we've come. So we've got to embrace all that social media, that coverage that the punter or the shareholder or the member can get. And build it off that base, and creating the dream. Can you imagine what it'd be like to be an owner of Fiorenti or Glencaddam Gold on Saturday? I've experienced it with Fields of Omar, even up in the broadcasting tower, and I missed all that fun of sitting with the family, waiting for the photo finish when he got up in 2006. I don't want to miss it this time around, but I want to share it. And there are so many people out there that want to do something like that, but it's got to be affordable.
Give it as a Christmas present.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's a lovely Christmas. Because actually, you think about the Melbourne Cup, and no disrespect, I mean, nothing but respect, but you go back through recent times, I mean, the Williams family winning with Green Moon, Sheikh Fahad Al Thani, who owns...
The Japanese?
He owns a country. Mr Yoshida basically owns a country as well. I mean, we've got to go all the way back to Wendy Green, who owned Rogan Josh, who took
yes.
a week to come down from Darwin and then took 5 weeks to go back. She stopped at every pub with the Melbourne Cup and drank.
Exactly.
That's what we need. We need the Melbourne Cup to get around to the pubs.
And that's exactly right. And as Gay said to me when we spoke about this with Rob as well, she said, it's got to be affordable. It's got to be affordable. And at $96 a month, you can't make it any cheaper than that to be a part of it, to be a shareholder in it. And it itemises out to about $17 a week for the punter, or $22. If you pay up front $17, $22 if you're paying it on a sort of a monthly sort of subscription. But you've got to give people a bang for their buck. Communications, you've got to be talking to the people every day virtually, what's happened, when the horse goes out, who's coming in. So it's important for this club to have maybe 10% or 2% or 50% to build that stable.
Yeah.
So there's plenty of action happening all the time. And the stayers, ranks and prize money are fantastic in Australia.
Unbelievable.
And when you look at Black Caviar won 25 races, about 9 at Group 1 level, and $7 million in prize money, but never contested a race worth more than $1 million. Never. Yet you've got the Melbourne Cup worth $6 million, the Caulfield Cup just under 3, Cox Plate at 3, BMW 2.5. The prize money for 2,000 metres beyond is staggering in Australia. It's probably pound for pound second only to Japan. So they're the horses you want to try and find. It's up to the skilled people like James Herron and Rob and people like that who can target and try and find those horses around the world. There's a huge market there, but everyone wants the same horse.
Yeah.
So they've got to sort of hone their skills to find that horse for the people. And it's the people's club. That's what it is.
Well, that's what the task ahead. That's for Gay living the dream. Gay, we're privileged to be sitting here listening to you, and I'd love to reflect on your career. You're in Australian Racing's Hall of Fame. When we go back through all your credentials and all the Group 1s and all the great achievements, what are you most proud of?
I don't know, Tom and Kate. They're the ones I'm most proud of. Look, it's exactly what Bryan was saying. It is living the dream, and look, it's my life. I get up in the morning at 2:30 in the morning, and people say, "Oh, why do you get up so early?" Just to be able to have everything in place before I go out and train the horses. I love training the horses. I don't like any of the other things that go on. That drives me mad. But I love training the horses. Any of you have played sport, you know exactly how it feels. That's that wonderful feeling of being in a team and being part of it and constantly, striving to achieve. And I've got a very competitive streak. I mean, so you can't help that. You find that when racing, it sort of caters for people who are competitive. That's a wonderful thing about it.
You don't ever regret giving up the budding acting career where you were smooching with Mark Holden on Young Doctors? You don't wish you were back pursuing that?
It's a mad life. I mean, they say training horses is a mad life, but I think the theatre was a madder life. And the thing is, I don't think I've left the theatre. I'm in the theatre of the horse. Every day when you have a presentation, I'll never forget when I won my first Group 1, which was with Tiako Nick, who then ran the next year second in the Melbourne Cup. And when I stood in front of the stand at Randwick and looked up, I thought, my God, this is what I've longed, for in the theatre and never really achieved. And here I am standing in front of all these people who, it was like being on stage, and that's exactly what it is. It is on stage. When we won the Derby with Nothing Like a Dane. And in those days, the press came into the mounting enclosure, if you can remember that, and we were literally mobbed. Mum and Dad and Helen Dalton and were leading in the jockey and the horse. And I thought, my God, this is what movie stars must feel. Is that amazing? You walk down the street here and someone says, "Oh, hi, what's the tip for tomorrow?" I mean, sport is so big in Australia, and racing is so much a part of our lives. That's why, going back to Bryan's club, Living the Dream, everyone can be part of it. That's a beautiful thing of it. That's the exciting thing.
That's fantastic. BM, you're getting close to your 25th Melbourne Cup, and in recent years, you had a little hiatus, and the SEN grabbed you, and, I would, without any bias, I think you're calling in great form. You're getting ready for number 25, and then why this book?
Well, thank you, Jason. Yeah, 25 Melbourne Cups. I never dreamed of that when I first started out as a racing commentator in Adelaide, and calling off the back of a semi-trailer on late in September over at Minderry Hallerton up on the river in South Australia. Never imagined that the journey would take me another 40 years to do what I wanted to do. But yeah, great to have the opportunity with SEN. I retired in 2007 and that was enough. I wanted to pursue other things like the racing clubs and then with the book, I've known Michael Wilkinson since 1976 actually, and he came in, he was a cub reporter actually with the Herald Sun at the time, it was the Sun News Pictorial, and he came into the broadcasting box to see Bert Bryant, the great broadcaster, and I was the number 3 caller, so I was the doorman, and I let him in. I said, "Oh, Bert, Michael Wilkinson wants to word with you," and Bert was pretty, when I reflect back now, it was only half an hour before the Cup. I shouldn't have done it because Michael upset him a little bit with the questions he asked him and that, and I virtually had to show Michael to the door and throw him out. So we go back, way back to 1976, and Bert went through the call, etc. It was a terrible day. The rain had come, and it was the year of Vanderham.
Yes,
if you remember, the meeting should have been called off, and you couldn't see the horses. And Bert actually did a great job because I remember Vanderham was in grey and green colours coming down the outside. And there's an unwritten law with broadcasters: if you're calling a race and your number 2 or your other man's in the box, if there's a colour you can't pick up, the other guy, if he picks it up before you, will call out and say, "Vanderham," to give you a hand. And I saw Vanderham coming, but his colours looked like Reckless, and I was about to say to Bert, "It's Reckless." And Bert was calling it Vanderham, and he was right. I would have been wrong. So I could have, got rid of him, poor man. So, and it wasn't planned. I'm just the junior. But so in meeting Michael, and sort of a few years back, Michael said, "You should write a book." I said, "Well, I don't believe in writing sort of a book when your chapters in your life's not in the twilight. But I'd love to write a book about the champions I've seen and the great moments in racing. And I've had so much luck, to be at Fushu racetrack in Tokyo for Better Loosen Up. And I was the only English caller there. There was a crowd of 187,000. So the call went worldwide. It was the only English call. There were about 25 Japanese callers and a caller from Hong Kong in Cantonese. So, and we're all in this open galley type of thing, right up on the top of the grandstand, and I could just hear these callers, no soundproof boxes, nothing, and here's this great Australian horse running for Australia like the Olympic Games and winning in a photo finish. Better Loosen Up wins for Australia. That was the line I used as he got the photo finish. So those moments, and being there when Black Caviar won at Royal Ascot, being there when Gay's dad's horse Kingston Town won his 3rd Cox Plate, being there for Better Loosen Up, as I say, being there for these fantastic times, Bone Crusher winning the Cox Plate in that epic finish. So I thought if we could sort of get those stories, and I was there moments, and Takeover Target, if we could get those stories into a book form. I'm not a writer, I don't profess to be a writer, but my great racing buddy over here is Leo Schlink, who's one of the nicest guys in the game, and we've been mates for many years now. And I said, "Leo, what about if I do the interviews and maybe you cobble the words together? We could come up with something like that." And we tried to find a title, and I thought, gee whiz, for 40 years as a caller, I've said, "They hit the line." They hit the line. That's the title of the book, They Hit the Line. So it's 16 chapters on from Luskin Star, and the day he won the Slipper, I was calling for 3UZ. I was at Moe. I was the number 3 man. I was standing there at the Moe races. I remember watching the television and seeing this 2-year-old at about the furlong and a half just go whoosh. And I thought, I've never seen a horse accelerate, a baby, a 2-year-old accelerate like that. So we started with the story of Luskin Star, which is a beautiful story. The horse should have died as a foal. They sat on its head to try and help it to recover from whatever it had. And he was one of those great racing stories, and one of the fastest horses we ever saw. So it starts in 1977 with Luskin Star, and then we had to wait for Black Caviar to retire so the story could be complete. And I'd like to pay tribute to Leo and the words that he's brought together, and the wonderful photos. And it's come to fruition. It's taken about 4 years. But I couldn't have a greater mate to work on it with. And I know people will say, "Is Fields of Omar in there?" No, he's not. He's on the front cover. That's his nose on the front cover getting up to win that Cox Plate when he said goodbye. But maybe he'll be in book number 2. But, there are Takeover Targets and Redute's Choice. See, a great racing moment was Redute's Choice beating Testarossa in that Caulfield Guineas. They were 2 cracking 3-year-olds, two outstanding stallions as they went later in life. And they had these great duels in the Show Day Cup, and then they met. Testarossa had Redute's Choice beaten that day, and Redute's just dug out something and came back and won in a photo finish. And that's what racing does, and I've always felt from when I can remember, I remember winning the sweep when Evening Peel won the Melbourne Cup, and I was 6. So I'm 63 now. So when I was 6, I won the sweep in the street in West Ivanhoe where we lived, in Green Street, and I won 2 bob. And I heard this call come out of this Bakelite box, sitting in the family in the lounge room with my brothers and my little sister, hearing this call come out of this box. And I thought, how has that happened? Where has that come from? Where's the man behind the box? And that's where I was bitten by racing at 6 years of age when Evening Peel won. So from then on, it just became my life. It consumes your life. It consumes Gay's life, Rob, anyone involved. There's no 40 hours. It takes over your life. But it's been a wonderful journey to do, and it's been fantastic to be able to bring this book to fruition with Leo and Michael. I'm sure it'll be a bestseller. It'll be out as a movie soon.
No doubt. It's available in all good bookstores and some
bad
ones.
and bad
Yeah,
bookstores
they're all gonna be
too.
there.
But the fact that we've now got it, we've bedded it down, and I'm just so proud to think, well, I never thought I'd write a book, but I've written a book with a great friend, and I want to make sure that for generations to come, they can look back at the book like that and say, God, that horse must have been good. What about that day in Japan when Better Loosen Up won? Or what about Black Caviar's Farewell? And all those things have to be captured some way, somehow. I think we've done it.
That's fantastic. We could sit here and do this for another hour, but I'll give you a quick opportunity. If anyone in the audience would like to ask a question to the First Lady of Racing, a Hall of Famer in Gay Waterhouse, or the one and only Bryan Martin, you can throw your hand up and big bold voice ask a question.
Now, don't be backward and coming forward.
No, I can see Justin Quill looks very keen to ask a question up there.
Thanks, Jason. Gay, I'm a very, very proud Warrnambool boy. Haven't missed a carnival in many, many years, and as wonderful as the carnival always is, I noticed this year, and I mean every year, this year there was an extra buzz around the place because you were in town. I think it got a lot more media as well because you were involved and in town. I understand your plans are to race again there next year. I think you maybe have taken some more stables in Melbourne to facilitate that. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience down in Warrnambool, how you liked it, if you liked it, and your plans going forward with it?
Loved
Stay in
it.
the Hilton?
Just loved it. And we stayed at Ferry Bar.
Port
Port
Fairy.
Fairy. Well, it was like Ferry Bar. It felt like Ferry Bar. And it was just fantastic. We had so much fun. And talk about being sort of embraced by the people, almost mobbed by the people. I mean, but it was just fantastic. So this year I'm going to open the stable and overwinter and keep it, this one's in charge of finding me a few jumpers. Our last one didn't get to the post. He got a sore leg. But that happens. But, and the nice thing about it is it's a mixture. You can take a sprinting horse, you can take a 2-year-old, you can take a 3-year-old. It's a really lovely, it's a carnival atmosphere. And more importantly, there's nice programming for the horses. But the people were really warm. And it was so funny. The committee sent me the other day a photograph of a horse, the horse that won the Grand National, the Grand Hurdle. And there he is going over the jumps. They said, for your mantelpiece. And they were lovely to me. We had a lot of fun.
That is fantastic news. Tone?
Thanks, Joe. Gay, Tom, it seems to be a sport in itself to bag Tom Waterhouse, whether it be on social media or just general talk in the street because he's trying to make a living. And you would hear that, you would see that being on social media yourself. As a mother, does that hurt you, the continual ridicule that Tom gets?
This gentleman was saying with Tom.
Well, just the way that Tom is, because Australians tend to bring down the tall poppies, and Tom's out there working hard, but in social media circles
yes.
and that, people's trying to be mean and bring him down. Is it?
Well,
you as a mum?
no, it doesn't, because he's chosen his profession, and if you can't cop it on the chin, you shouldn't be doing it. And the other thing is that you learn when you're in the public eye to get quite I'm not saying you mightn't go home and feel it in your, because we're all human, but you do learn to get a thicker outer layer. I can assure you, you have to. And if you're going to be very prominent in the media, as Tom was when, he was on the sides of buses, now his mother's on the sides of buses. But you know what I mean? If you're going to be in, and, as Jason said, in Australia, if it was Sporting Bet or Sportsbet or .com or whatever it might be, we have no problem. The moment it's a face, then, if you want to have a dig or hate, unfortunately that's our nature. But look, that's Australia. And the thing is, Tom's bigger than that, and he's passionate, absolutely passionate racing, and he's passionate about betting. He loves that side of it. So no, I'm very proud of him, as Rob is also, and you know, you just flow with the blows.
And he just sold his business for a nice amount, Tej, and we didn't get a little chop out either. Any other questions in the audience to either of our guests? Well, yep.
Just following on from the last question, you're loving being a grandma?
Yes, I do. I don't see enough of her, but I do enjoy it. You know, it's a different world, as Jill knows. And, you know, and she's only 7 months old, but she's lovely. She's really nice.
Bryan, Gay's probably got favourite horses along the journey. Apart from Fields of Omar, is there one moment that you can identify that's either in the book or not, where you enjoyed in your professional career?
Oh, absolutely. Better loosen up, because I watched him come through, and it was a significant change in the life of David Hayes. David Hayes took out his training licence on the 1st of August 1990, and he inherited Better Loosen Up straight away from his father. And within 3 months, Better Loosen Up had won the Fian, the Cox Plate, the McKinnon, the Japan Cup, and then came back in the autumn and won the Australian Cup. He was the best horse in the world, clearly. And that day in Japan as a broadcaster, but as a proud Australian, will never leave me, because I flew over with the Farrars, who owned the horse from Albury, with Mr. and Mrs. Hayes, Colin and Betty Hayes, Howard Martin, who bred the horse from Berrigan. So you became a part of this Australian team, and I was the broadcaster. So we had all bases covered. And so socially, we all stayed together, all in the same hotel in the Kyo Plaza in Tokyo. So it was good just to move, to be at track work, to go to the races on the Saturday before the Sunday meeting, to be a part of it with Michael Clark and Gary Fennessy. So it must be like people being a team of going to the Olympic Games, but winning that day, because it was so significant. It was a cracking field. There was Kakawithis, who won the King George from the UK. There was the filly who won the French Oaks, called Ode. The North American best galloper was there, and Stylish Century and Better Loosen Up were there for Australia. So you had this, probably the best field ever assembled in 1990. And I remember it, the preliminary went so long, and I couldn't stop shaking because of where the call was going through Channel 9. They broke into the cricket, the test that day, to come to me, and the photo finish went on and on. I said he'd won, and I knew he'd won because I could still see his head sticking out parallel to the rail. And he won by that much, but I had no doubt he won. And it just dawned on me halfway through, as I was padding out for about 20 minutes, my God, what if I'm wrong? I won't be able to go home. But to follow him all the way through and then see him, you know, unluckily beaten in the 1992 Cox Plate when he was knocked over in that great race that was won by Superimpose. He was a champion horse, and he'd go up, and actually Michael Clark told me he'd get alongside horses and never win by a margin, but he'd actually nudge them, if to say. He said, Michael said he was like a fierce, like a prize fighter. He'd get up alongside the horse he was nailing and just sort of say, I'm here. You know, not lose it to a protest or anything like that, but a will to win like no other. And I remember in the parade ring, there's aristocratic horses from Europe and all that, and here's number 14, this plain little bay horse, his ears flapping down. He really didn't deserve to be there on looks, but on form he certainly did. But the moment he stepped onto the track that day, in front of 187,000, he was a gladiator. He just grew, and Michael Clark said the same. He said you could feel him grow beneath you, and he came from third last and won. But to follow him all the way through as a caller and to see the courage of that horse at the highest level, he's without doubt my favourite, yeah.
Gay, just quickly.
It's interesting what you said about him growing on the track, that both Nash said exactly the same thing of Piero, that he pumped himself up, and Darren Beedman, when I had a sandwich with him only a couple of months ago, said the same thing of Longrow. He said, you know, when they get behind the barriers and they know it's a competition and they can physically, and that shows that's a great horse. Only great horses.
You're right, Gay, because Craig Williams told me the same with Fields of Omar and other jockeys that rode him in 5 Cox Plates. Particularly, he'd go onto the track, he'd be docile in the yard, they'd tow him around, they'd tow them around, but they'd just be relaxed. And this is the grand final, this is the MCG, this is the biggest day of his life, 5 in a row, this particular day in October. And the jockeys would say he'd come out, his ears would go up, and you'd feel him grow, and in the gates, they'd rise again. He said they knew, and they were great competitors, and they turn it on. Incredible. And I still don't think we've really tapped into what the horse is about. You know, the horse, the thoroughbred goes back over 3,000 years, but we still have to get inside their head and work out why are they so good, what makes them, what's the ingredients to why are they truly the champions. And One day I think we'll find out, hopefully.
Fiorente, better chance in the Cox Plate or the Melbourne Cup?
I think he's got a great chance in both. Absolutely. Why wouldn't
I
he?
had a feeling that could have been the answer.
Well, yeah, but, well, I wouldn't have him if I didn't think he had a good chance, and he's favourite in the Melbourne Cup. And I've never had a favourite in the Melbourne Cup, so it's a double for both of us. But he ran at the Valley the other day and was unbelievably competitive. The Valley will suit him because it's that sort of dish and it flows around there. And the Melbourne Cup will be exactly his pie. I mean, you know, it's the right distance for the horse. That's what they're bred to do, those English and European horses. The further they go, the better they go. Interesting, the 9 across the finishing line last year in the Cup, where'd they come from? Northern Hemisphere.
Absolutely. I think precedence in 10th was the first Aussie. Just one last one.
You've both seen the fairy tale stories of Mackay Diva and Black Caviar, and they're in the book, Bryan. I'd just like to know your opinions on which you think was the better of the two and why. And that's a
Mackay
question for
Diva
both of you.
burned.
Mackay Diva and Black Caviar, who was the best?
Oh gosh, if I had either, I'd be happy. They're totally different. One was a great staying mare, and the other one was a brilliant sprinter. I mean, and both mares caught the attention of the public. You can normally get 300 people at Adelaide, and she brought 30,000. Yeah. That tells you, you know, where do you get those draw cards in racing? You're flat out getting anyone. We'll go to the Caulfield yesterday, and you wouldn't bump into anyone. It's sad racing's lost that sex appeal. To want to come out and you can go to the clubs and the pubs and bet there, you can bet on your phone, but to come to the races and Maccabee do, well, the Desert know better than anyone. On the final day when they thought they were going to scratch Maccabee Diva from the Cup, there was enormous pressure on them outside to make sure she did not scratch, because they were all pre-sold, all those seats and all that. And that just shows you, people had come to see one horse. So, you know, those great horses come very seldom.
I think the curator might have just put a bit of water on the track to make sure she did run too.
And it was a good decision.
It was a good decision because she was the people's horse, and Black Caviar was the same. And Tony, to answer your question, I don't think we should try and separate them. I just think we should rejoice in what they gave us, because they became the people's horse. And I've never seen anything like what Black Caviar has done to racing. I remember the day she ran in the 1400 metre race, the Orr Stakes at Caulfield, and I was calling for SEN a couple of years ago. And my daughter and her husband brought our grandson, Leo, and my son and his wife brought our granddaughter, Charlotte, two separate sides, and they came just for 30 minutes to see Black Caviar because the kids knew of Black Caviar. No other horse, even Mackay Diva, has transcended the sport from racing to somewhere else to make headline news. And it was the great racing story. The balloon was never pricked, 25, you know. And walking off Ascot that day, going back to the coaches, there were 7,000 Australians there. I think there were 5,000 watching at Fed Square. No horse has ever done that. It's touched people like that horse did. And standing there in the mounting yard, you know, I couldn't get back to my seat when the horses went over the line. Had she won? We're all hoping she'd won. And it was theatre and sport like I've never seen in my life, and we'll never see it again. So celebrate the two of them because they're rare. They're hen's teeth.
We'll celebrate you two. Big round of applause. Bryan Martin and Gai Waterhouse. Gai, good luck. Good luck in the Cup. Good luck in the Cup, and Bryan, good luck with the book.
Thank you. Can I, Jason, just before I sit down, can I just thank a couple of people, particularly Leo, the co-author of They Hit the Line, and Michael Wilkinson for having the belief in getting it all done. Colin Bull's been fantastic with all the photos, to Tony here and Mike Smith across over there for organising today. We never expected anything like this. We thought we just, you know, the book would be launched and that'd be it, because I've never done it before and neither has Leo. But it's exciting just to have a collection of people, some wonderful people here today, and a very, very big special thanks to my wife Jill, who's here today, because anything that was written she would always check. She's a former primary teacher, grandma, and my best friend, and she would always check the manuscripts as we rolled along. And I'm proud to have my son Tim and his wife Louise here today. So it's a special day for our family, and thank you very much for being here.
Good on you, BM. Good luck with your book.
We have one final thing to do, and that, of course, is the draw of our magnificent prize, which is that signed Ascot racebook. So I might ask Gai if he wouldn't mind doing the honours. Do you want to take the first again? Terence Coyne. Terence. Congratulations. Terence Coyne. Thanks very much. Lovely. So once again, thank you very much to Gay. Surely this is your year in Melbourne. Thank you to Bryan. Best of luck with your call this year, and indeed to both you and Leo, best of luck with the book. Of course, many copies outside waiting for customers, so avail yourself of the opportunity to get a copy, and no doubt with a signature in it as well. And thank you, Richo, for your efforts as MC. Once again, thanks everyone for coming. Look forward to seeing you again at another Melbourne Press Club event.